the website, we just essentially said, look, you have to validate that you are a U.S. resident by typing in your zip code. And that is enough for you, your sort of honor code that you are a U.S. listener. Our most popular zip code for the first year and a half was 90210. Well, embarrassing, but if you took like a demographic extrapolation from Pandora, like Beverly Hills was Tokyo, you know, because of % of listeners coming from Southern California. But we had to turn listeners off about a year and a half into the service because we were threatened with lawsuits, because there is no centralized form of licensing like the DMCA in any other country. There are some murmurings of it, and the UK has similar licensing bodies, but they've come up with answers on the fee structure that are completely unaffordable. So there does not exist right now a sort of statutory rate that's affordable that we can take advantage of outside the US. Our hope is that once we resolve the rates in the US, that we can take that as a template and spread it globally, go map it onto other territories. And you know, we've been through a very interesting process. I mean, interesting is, you know, a kind word, in the last year and a half, because a year and a half ago in March, a arbitration panel from the Copyright Office ruled to triple the rates that we pay, the performance fees that we pay under the DMCA. So it overnight essentially broke our business model. And Pandora, we had a board meeting not long thereafter where the topic was, how soon do we shut down? Because you know, we weren't profitable yet, and it takes a while to build up your advertising base, and we'd just been hit with rates that we couldn't afford. And rather than shut down, we organized a grassroots sort of political campaign. Did anybody get an email from us in here that, all right, sure. I hope you called. We encourage listeners to make some noise. And Capitol Hill received 400,000 faxes in 3 days from largely Pandora listeners, and eventually got 2 million faxes, phone calls, emails, letters from largely Pandora listeners over the course of about a 6-month period. And it was so much public pressure that Congress intervened and forced a renegotiation, which we are sort of, as we speak, concluding. And so, to my mind, I think I consider it to be an incredibly sort of watershed moment, not just for music, but for sort of media in general. The idea that there could be some sort of change in an arcane publishing or performance fee in Washington that's wrapped by a very sophisticated lobbying machinery, which is the RIAA, and that the people would rise up and say no. Like, that's in a novel maybe, but not in the real world. But thanks to the web, which has this incredible communication medium, literally it was public voice that caused this to get restructured. If it hadn't been for that, our company would have been out of business a year and a half ago. So we have listeners to thank for that, and we may need help again. But I think it's a really it was a vital victory because, among other things, it maintains the statutory system. Because if you lose that, then folks like Pandora have to direct license their music, which means we have to get individual permission from all the rights holders for every song that we play. In other words, we're at the mercy of the 4 majors, which is where a lot of companies find themselves right now in the digital space. I think you're going to see in the next 12 or 18 months, a lot of companies who have struck direct deals are going to start learning why that's not the place you want to be. And it also is incredibly important for all the indie artists, because when you're in the direct deal world, you don't have time for the garage band from Indiana. And you have to focus on where the bulk of the material is, because that's where you can allocate your legal fees. If you're a lawyer in intellectual property, you've got a bright future ahead of you. I think there's a lot of activity going to be going on in that space coming up. Yeah.
Do you think what you built can transcend culture and language? I mean, like, how far can you stretch your genres? And you mentioned global.
We're doing Asian Indian music as we speak. So.
And it works?
Yep. And we just added Cajun. We're about to add Cajun, Celtic, and Hawaiian. We have Spanish and Portuguese language music, so all the Latin genres, and it works like a charm. So our long-term goal is for you to be able to type in, the Counting Crows and find their cousins in, Turkey. And to me, that's when this thing gets to be incredibly exciting. And when we turn people off internationally, when we shut down Pandora, I remember an email I got from somebody who was in Yugoslavia somewhere. And he was really crushed. He wrote and he said, you know, I'm writing in not for myself, not just for myself, but on behalf of the town that I live in. You see, he lives in a town of about 400 people. And for, I guess, quite a while, that town, every Saturday night, they had collected at the local club for Pandora Night. And it had become like the social event of the week in this sort of mountainous region, and everybody would get together, and Pandora would DJ the party. So people would come and do the mix, and Pandora would provide the music. And you know, it really brought home to me how universal music is. And that was when Pandora was like 95% English speaking. So we hadn't even begun to do stuff outside, you know, US and British catalog. And still we were so popular in these countries. I had an email from a guy from Germany who said, "We hate your government of war, but we love Pandora." Not to inject politics into this, but again, like just that's another way of saying, like, when it comes to music, we are one. And I think it's such an incredibly powerful ingredient, and this service will not really realize its potential until it is truly international. And I think it's going to be important, I think, sociologically. So I can't wait for that day. Yeah.
Two quick questions. I suppose one is, can you envisage a point when a threshold is crossed and you have no need for those 50 musicians to rate music, i.e. your database and your system is so good that it can just automatically rate music? And secondly, you are just focusing on music, but obviously radio itself has a much broader palette than that, in terms of speech and audio books, whatever. And can you see the same kind of system, or your system, being applied to those other things?
So the first question was, do we see a time when we won't need music analysts? And not in the near future. One of the things that is a unique characteristic of the genome